Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me today, because what I am about to say may change your life. It may save your future, your family, your dignity, and even your soul. We live in a time where foolishness is celebrated, where what is wrong is called right, and what is right is called outdated. But let me ask you, do you want to be wise or do you want to be foolish? My friends, throughout history, there have been two kinds of women, those who walk in wisdom and those who fall into foolishness. A wise woman is a blessing to her family, her community, and herself. But a foolish woman destroys everything she touches. And today, I want to give you 12 signs of a stupid woman. But why does this matter? Because foolishness carries consequences. A foolish woman destroys her own happiness. She loses the respect of others. She makes mistakes that leave scars. And worst of all, she walks a path that leads to regret. You need to hear this, and you need to hear it now, because if you recognize even one of these signs in yourself or someone you love, you must act before it's too late. Sign 1. A stupid woman rejects wisdom. The foolish woman ignores wise counsel. She doesn't listen to advice. She pushes away people who care about her. She refuses correction. And in doing so, she sets herself on the road to destruction. Sign 2. She talks more than she listens. A foolish woman is quick to speak, but slow to listen. She interrupts. She dominates conversations. She never stops to learn because she is too busy trying to prove she's right. Sign 3. She lives for gossip and drama. A foolish woman thrives on gossip. She spreads rumors. She enjoys seeing others fall. She stirs conflict. But what she doesn't realize is that her words are destroying her own reputation. Sign 4. She disrespects men in authority. She mocks her husband. She belittles men. She has no respect for leaders, parents, or mentors. But she doesn't understand that disrespect doesn't make her powerful, it makes her foolish. Sign 6, she seeks attention in all the wrong ways. A foolish woman craves attention through immodesty, manipulation, or rebellion. But true confidence doesn't come from being loud or reckless. It comes from wisdom and character. Sign 6, she spends recklessly. A foolish woman wastes money on things that don't matter. She puts herself and her family in financial ruin because of greed, impulsiveness, or pride. Sign 7, she refuses to take responsibility. When she makes mistakes, she blames others. She makes excuses. She never admits when she's wrong. But without accountability, there is no growth. Sign 8, she puts her feelings above truth. She follows her heart without question. But the Bible warns that the heart is deceitful. Feelings can mislead. Wisdom follows truth, not emotion. Sign 9, she surrounds herself with foolish people. A foolish woman loves bad company. She rejects wise friends and chooses people who encourage bad behavior. But show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Sign 10. She destroys her own home. A foolish woman tears down her marriage. She neglects her children. She creates conflict in her home. A wise woman, on the other hand, builds a legacy of love and strength. Sign 11. She has no fear of God. A foolish woman lives as if there is no accountability. She ignores God's wisdom. She makes decisions based only on the world's standards, and it leads to ruin. Ding. She ignores the warnings. Even when trouble comes, a foolish woman refuses to change. She ignores the signs. But wisdom is calling, and if she does not wake up, she will pay the price. Now, my dear sisters and brothers, you have a choice today. Will you continue down the path of foolishness, or will you choose wisdom? If you've seen yourself in any of these signs, don't be discouraged, because there is hope. There is a way out. Wisdom begins with humility. It begins with recognizing our need to change. It begins with listening, learning, and seeking the truth. And when you do, you will find a life of peace, honor, and true success. So I ask you one final time, will you be wise or will you be foolish? The choice is yours. Wisdom and foolishness are two opposing forces that shape the course of a woman's life. A wise woman understands that her choices, words, and actions have far-reaching consequences, not just for herself, but for those around her. She seeks knowledge, discerns truth from deception, and embraces growth through humility. On the other hand, a foolish woman is blind to the impact of her decisions. She dismisses correction, follows her emotions blindly, and lives without considering the long-term effects of her actions. Her foolishness is not just an inconvenience. It is a force of destruction that tears down her relationships, her peace, and her future. A wise woman knows that wisdom does not come naturally. It must be sought, cultivated, and practiced daily. She understands that learning is a lifelong journey, and she surrounds herself with people who challenge her to grow. She values advice from those who have walked the path before her, recognizing that experience is a valuable teacher. She seeks out mentors, reads, studies, and prays for discernment, because she knows that wisdom is the foundation of success. In contrast, she becomes defensive when someone tries to guide her. She believes she already knows everything she needs to know, and her pride keeps her from listening. She may even reject wise people in her life, preferring the company of those who affirm her poor decisions rather than challenge her to do better. This self-imposed ignorance leads her to make choices that bring harm rather than good. One of the most dangerous traits of a foolish woman is her impulsiveness. She acts before thinking, speaks before considering the consequences, and makes decisions based on temporary emotions rather than sound judgment. She allows anger, jealousy, or pride to dictate her responses, often leading to regret. She spends recklessly, speaks recklessly, and loves recklessly, not realizing that her lack of control is leading her toward destruction. A wise woman, however, exercises restraint. She does not allow fleeting emotions to rule her life. She takes time to reflect, analyze, and seek guidance before making important decisions. She understands that patience and self-control are essential virtues that protect her from unnecessary pain and hardship. Foolishness is also evident in how a woman handles relationships. A foolish woman constantly seeks validation and attention in the wrong places. She manipulates, gossips, and stirs up drama. She is careless with her words, tearing people down rather than building them up. Her lack of discretion leads her to trust the wrong people and engage in relationships that drain her energy and compromise her values. A wise woman, however, values meaningful connections. She knows that the people she surrounds herself with will either uplift her or bring her down. She chooses friends and partners who share her values, who encourage her to grow, and who bring peace rather than chaos into her life. She understands that relationships should be built on mutual respect, trust, and integrity, not selfishness or deception. A foolish woman is often blind to her own mistakes. She refuses to take responsibility and instead blames others for her failures. When she faces difficulty, she complains rather than learning from it. She does not see hardships as opportunities for growth, but as unfair burdens placed upon her. Because of this mindset, she repeats the same mistakes over and over, never improving, never growing. A wise woman, on the other hand, understands that failure is part of life. She acknowledges her mistakes, learns from them, and moves forward with a stronger sense of direction. She embraces challenges as opportunities to develop resilience and wisdom. She does not dwell on what went wrong, but focuses on what she can do better in the future. Ultimately, the difference between wisdom and foolishness is a matter of choice. A woman who seeks wisdom will find life, peace, and fulfillment, while a woman who chooses foolishness will encounter disappointment, regret, and loss. Discernment is the ability to judge situations wisely, to separate truth from deception, and to make decisions that lead to a better future. It is a trait that defines a wise woman, allowing her to navigate through life's challenges without falling into traps of regret and foolishness. Without discernment, a woman is easily swayed by emotions, bad influences, and deceptive appearances. She may trust the wrong people, follow the wrong voices, and make choices that seem right in the moment, but lead to destruction in the long run. The difference between wisdom and foolishness often comes down to this one thing: discernment. A discerning woman does not rush into decisions based purely on emotions. She understands that feelings are temporary, but the consequences of her choices can last a lifetime. She takes the time to evaluate situations, seeking advice and wisdom before taking action. She does not jump into relationships without understanding a person's true character. She does not make financial decisions on impulse. She does not get caught up in drama and gossip because she knows that not everything that appears exciting or urgent is worth her energy. Instead, she takes a step back, observes, and listens before speaking or acting. Foolish women lack discernment because they trust the wrong sources. They are drawn to entertainment and social media voices rather than seeking wisdom from experienced mentors or spiritual guidance. They are quick to believe whatever they hear without questioning its truth. If someone flatters them, they immediately trust that person without considering their true intentions. If someone criticizes them, they become defensive instead of reflecting on whether the criticism contains valuable insight. This lack of discernment leaves them vulnerable to deception, manipulation, and bad decisions that they later regret. A wise woman, however, understands that discernment requires both knowledge and experience. She seeks wisdom from those who have lived longer, faced challenges, and learned from their mistakes. She is not afraid to ask for advice or admit that she does not have all the answers. She listens to those who have her best interests at heart rather than being influenced by those who only tell her what she wants to hear. She also learns from her own experiences, taking lessons from past failures instead of repeating them. She is constantly growing, always sharpening her ability to judge situations correctly. Another key aspect of discernment is recognizing danger before it is too late. A foolish woman ignores red flags in relationships, business deals, and friendships. She convinces herself that things will change or that she can handle bad situations on her own. She ignores warning signs because she does not want to face reality. A wise woman, on the other hand, trusts her intuition. She does not dismiss signs of dishonesty, manipulation, or toxicity. When something feels off, she investigates before making commitments. She protects herself and those she loves by making careful, well-informed choices. Discernment is a skill that must be developed with intentionality. It requires patience, self-awareness, and a willingness to learn. A woman who cultivates discernment will avoid many unnecessary heartaches, disappointments, and failures in life. She will walk with confidence, knowing that her decisions are grounded in wisdom, not impulse. A woman's level of wisdom or foolishness is most evident in her relationships. The way she interacts with family, friends, colleagues, and even strangers reflects the state of her heart and mind. A wise woman builds relationships based on love, respect, and understanding, while a foolish woman destroys them with selfishness, pride, and recklessness. The relationships in her life either bring her peace and stability or chaos and regret. Whether in friendships, marriage, family, or professional connections, the presence or absence of wisdom will determine the quality of her relationships and ultimately the direction of her life. A foolish woman does not value the people in her life as she should. She takes relationships for granted, often expecting others to cater to her needs without reciprocating love or effort. She fails to nurture the bonds that matter most, assuming they will always be there. Over time, this neglect creates distance, resentment, and eventually broken relationships. Whether it is through a lack of appreciation for her spouse, dishonoring her parents, or disregarding the feelings of her friends, she slowly isolates herself without even realizing it. A wise woman, on the other hand, cherishes the people in her life. She invests time, energy, and love into her relationships. She understands that strong relationships require effort, patience, and selflessness. She does not wait until she loses someone to recognize their value. She expresses gratitude and love while they are still present. Foolishness in relationships is often revealed through words. A foolish woman speaks without thinking, allowing her emotions to control her tongue. She is quick to criticize, gossip, and insult, damaging the trust and respect of those around her. She does not consider how her words affect others. And once damage is done, she rarely takes responsibility. A wise woman, however, understands the power of her words. She knows that words can either build or destroy, heal or wound. She chooses her words carefully, speaking with kindness and wisdom. She knows when to speak and when to remain silent, understanding that not every thought needs to be expressed. Her words bring encouragement, restoration, and peace to her relationships. Another sign of foolishness is a constant need for control. A foolish woman tries to manipulate people to get what she wants, often using guilt, deception, or emotional outbursts. She struggles with trust and insists on having her way, even at the cost of hurting those around her. This need for control eventually pushes people away, leaving her feeling abandoned and bitter. A wise woman, however, understands that love cannot be forced. She respects the free will of others and does not use manipulation as a means to maintain relationships. She builds trust by being honest, supportive, and secure in herself. Because of this, people naturally gravitate toward her, and her relationships are stronger and healthier. In the end, the quality of a woman's relationships is a direct reflection of her wisdom. A foolish woman sows discord, loneliness, and brokenness, while a wise woman cultivates love, respect, and lifelong bonds. A woman's ability to navigate life wisely is deeply connected to her spiritual awareness. A wise woman seeks truth beyond what is visible. She discerns the deeper meaning of life, the consequences of her choices, and the direction of her soul. A foolish woman, however, is spiritually blind. She walks through life unaware of the dangers ahead, rejecting wisdom and making decisions based on temporary desires rather than eternal truths. This blindness does not just affect her, it affects everyone connected to her. It influences how she raises her children, how she treats her relationships, and even how she views herself. A foolish woman often trusts in her own understanding, believing that she can figure everything out without seeking guidance. She disregards wisdom from those who have walked the path before her. She ignores the voice of truth speaking to her, choosing instead to follow what feels good in the moment. She may dismiss wisdom because it challenges her, because it requires her to change, or because it requires her to change, or because it contradicts what she wants. But in doing so, she sets herself up for failure. Just as a blind person cannot see the obstacles in their way, a spiritually blind woman moves through life without recognizing the dangers that lie ahead. She makes choices based on appearance rather than substance, impulse rather than discernment, and pride rather than humility. This blindness leads to deception. A foolish woman is easily influenced by the world around her. She believes lies that tell her she must prove her worth through material success, beauty, or social validation. She chases after things that promise happiness but leave her feeling empty. She falls for smooth words and false promises because she does not have the discernment to recognize deception. She may be drawn into toxic relationships, destructive habits, or reckless decisions, all because she cannot see the truth. A wise woman, however, seeks spiritual insight. She understands that not everything is as it seems. She looks beyond the surface, recognizing that what is popular is not always right, and what feels good in the moment is not always best in the long run. She seeks wisdom and truth, even when it is difficult, because she knows that true fulfillment comes from insight, not illusion. A spiritually blind woman also struggles with accountability. She resents correction and avoids self-reflection. When faced with her mistakes, she blames others, makes excuses, or simply ignores the warning signs. She does not want to acknowledge her faults, because doing so would require her to change. But a wise woman embraces growth. She welcomes correction as an opportunity to improve. She understands that humility is the key to wisdom, and that true strength comes from recognizing one's weaknesses and working to overcome them. In the end, a woman's spiritual insight determines the course of her life. If she chooses blindness, she will continue down a path of regret, confusion, and loss. If she seeks wisdom, she will walk a path of clarity, purpose, and true fulfillment. A foolish woman does not recognize that every action has consequences. She moves through life without considering the impact of her choices, believing that she can do as she pleases without facing any repercussions. But the truth is that foolishness always has a price. A woman who lacks wisdom will eventually find herself dealing with unnecessary struggles, broken relationships, missed opportunities, and deep regrets. The consequences of stupidity are not always immediate, but they are inevitable. What may seem like a small act of carelessness today can lead to devastation tomorrow. One of the most painful consequences of foolishness is broken relationships. A foolish woman speaks without thinking, offends without apologizing, and takes people for granted. She may assume that love and loyalty will always be there, even if she mistreats those around her. But disrespect, dishonesty, and selfishness push people away. Over time, she finds herself surrounded by shallow connections, or worse, completely alone. The people who once loved her grow tired of her recklessness and distance themselves. A wise woman, however, understands that relationships require care. She treats people with kindness, respects their feelings, and takes responsibility for her words and actions. Because of this, she builds lasting, meaningful relationships that bring her joy rather than sorrow. Another major consequence of stupidity is repeated failure. A foolish woman does not learn from her mistakes. She ignores warnings, dismisses advice, and continues making poor decisions, expecting different results. She blames others for her problems rather than recognizing her role in creating them. She may struggle with financial troubles because of impulsive spending, or she may fail in her career because she refuses to take guidance or put in effort. When things go wrong, instead of reflecting and growing, she looks for someone to blame or simply complains about her circumstances. A wise woman, on the other hand, learns from her mistakes. She acknowledges when she is wrong, seeks improvement, and makes better choices. Because of this, she grows stronger and more successful over time. A foolish woman also destroys her own reputation. She may think that her actions do not matter, but people are always watching. If she is known for being unreliable, dishonest, or reckless, others will stop trusting her. Opportunities will pass her by because no one wants to invest in someone who cannot be trusted. A foolish woman often finds herself stuck in life, wondering why doors never open for her, without realizing that her own behavior is the reason. A wise woman, however, values her reputation. She builds trust through consistency, integrity, and responsibility. She understands that a good name is more valuable than riches, and that character determines one's future. Ultimately, the consequences of foolishness can shape a woman's entire life. She may wake up one day and realize that she has wasted years on bad choices. She may find herself filled with regret over things that could have been avoided. But wisdom is always available to those who seek it. A woman who chooses wisdom over foolishness will find stability, respect, and true fulfillment. One of the most dangerous traits of a foolish woman is her inability to control herself. Whether it's her words, emotions, habits, or desires, she acts impulsively without considering the consequences. She lets her emotions dictate her actions, reacts without thinking, and indulges in temporary pleasures without regard for the long-term effects. This lack of self-betrayal not only damages her own life, but also affects the people around her. A woman who cannot control herself is a danger to her relationships, her reputation, and her future. A foolish woman speaks without restraint. She does not think before she talks, and her words often cause harm. She lashes out in anger, gossips about others, and speaks carelessly, assuming that her words have no impact. But words are powerful. They can build or destroy, heal or wound. A woman who speaks without self-control pushes people away, creates conflict, and damages her credibility. People learn not to trust her because they know she cannot keep a secret or speak with wisdom. A wise woman, however, understands the power of silence. She knows when to speak and when to remain quiet. She thinks before she responds, ensuring that her words bring peace rather than destruction. Emotional outbursts are another sign of a lack of self-betrayal. A foolish woman allows her emotions to rule her life. When she is angry, she lashes out. When she is jealous, she acts out of spite. When she is frustrated, she blames others instead of seeking solutions. She does not take time to process her feelings before reacting, leading to unnecessary drama and conflict. Her emotions control her instead of her controlling them. A wise woman, however, practices self-discipline. She acknowledges her emotions but does not let them dictate her actions. She takes time to calm down before responding, ensuring that she acts with wisdom rather than impulse. She understands that self-control is a mark of maturity and strength. Another area where a foolish woman lacks control is in her habits and desires. She spends recklessly, eats excessively, or indulges in harmful behaviors without considering the consequences. She may prioritize pleasure over responsibility, seeking immediate gratification rather than long-term success. This lack of discipline leads to financial troubles, health issues, and a chaotic life. She lives for the moment without considering how her choices will affect her future. A wise woman, however, exercises discipline in all areas of life. She makes intentional choices, ensuring that her actions align with her goals. She practices moderation, understanding that true fulfillment comes from balance, not excess. A woman without self-control also struggles with consistency. She starts things but never finishes them. She makes promises but does not keep them. She sets goals but does not follow through. Because of this, she remains stuck in cycles of failure and disappointment. A wise woman, however, understands the power of discipline. She commits to her goals, follows through on her promises, and takes responsibility for her actions. She does not allow laziness or distractions to keep her from achieving what she desires. In the end, self-control is what separates wisdom from foolishness. A woman who cannot control herself will find her life filled with regret, broken relationships, and missed opportunities. But a woman who masters self-discipline will build a life of stability, respect, and lasting success. In the journey of life, every woman stands at a crossroads, the path of wisdom or the path of foolishness. The difference between the two is not in circumstances, but in choices. A wise woman seeks knowledge, embraces discipline, values relationships, and exercises discernment. She understands that every action has consequences and that self-retrieval is the foundation of true strength. She does not let emotions or temporary desires dictate her life, but walks with purpose, making decisions that lead to peace, success, and fulfillment. On the other hand, a foolish woman drifts through life without considering where her choices are leading her. She lacks self-awareness, ignores wisdom, and repeats the same mistakes. She trusts the wrong people, speaks without thinking, and allows emotions to rule her. She damages relationships, wastes opportunities, and eventually faces the painful consequences of her actions. But the good news is that wisdom is not beyond reach. Any woman at any stage of life can choose to turn away from foolishness and walk in wisdom. It begins with humility, with a willingness to learn, change, and grow. The question that remains is, which path will you choose? Will you continue down the road of impulsiveness, carelessness, and regret? Or will you take hold of wisdom, discipline your mind and heart, and walk with confidence into a future of purpose and success? The decision is yours, but know this: your life is shaped by the choices you make today. Choose wisely, and you will build a life that is strong, respected, and full of lasting joy.